Empezamos el segundo día de FutureCom desde Sao Paulo con un panel sobre cómo asegurar la calidad de la experiencia para los usuarios de telecomunicaciones y contamos con las empresas Nominum y Procera que nos van a ayudar a entender mejor cómo los operadores podrían implementar algunas técnicas, tecnologías o situaciones que podrían mejorar este asunto en diferentes redes, no solo en las redes celulares, sino incluso en las redes Wi-Fi. Gentlemen, thank you for being here at Asegurando. This interview of the day for me. Thank you. Just be patient with my English.
No problem.
All right. So
as long as you're patient with mine.
I'll be very patient. Trust me. So, well, the idea of the panel or this debate is to tell the operators how they can improve the quality of experience of the users, because the quality of experience we've seen that is probably one of the key pillars for the operators moving forward if they want to remain competitive. That's at least what everybody's saying. So tell us your proposition to improve quality of experience from the operators. What can Nominum and Procera offer to the operators so the QoE, Jesus Christ, can improve?
So I'll go first?
Yeah, you can start.
So,
yeah.
Quality of experience, for a while it's been one of the key topics that operators have been talking about. Say, okay, how do we make a better connection? How does the customer feel a better connection? And there are many different bottlenecks in the network that could affect the quality of experience. We have seen that one of the major ones, well, while browsing, if the subscriber tries to browse and it starts with a bad network, it feels, latency, that's affects very much the quality of the experience. So you click on there, you go to a website, Telesemana, and then, loading, say that's frustrating. So we believe that, first of all, high quality DNS with a low latency answer can improve a lot and improve the quality of experience, because, well, if you see it loading the page, it's better than waiting to see where the page is. So this is the first step. But then we see the problem is that a lot of customers, they feel a low latency, or they feel a heavy connection because maybe they're infected with botnets and malwares. And although the operator gives them a 10 megabit per second or whatever, they say they experience very low bandwidth because their computer is being a zombie. They say they have botnets and so on. And this is one thing that we believe a lot of people have malwares in their PCs, on their Android devices, and they complain that it's a very low speed network, but actually the speed is there.
Okay.
But another software is using all their bandwidth, and this happens.
All the time?
A lot.
A lot.
We have experience, we had just made a research for one local operator
here
in Brazil.
You're going to name the operator?
No.
Okay.
It's a mobile operator, and we saw that they have about 2 million subscribers with Android devices infected.
But they don't know.
They don't know. We have that because every malware, every virus have a signature. They do a DNS. First, when you're going to do an attack or whatever, the first thing you always do is a DNS query. So we own the DNS. So we see, with the knowledge of the operator, they say, let's do the study. So we got a dump of the logs and say, okay, well, all these subscribers are making queries to command and control centers that they are infected with this kind of botnets.
Yeah.
So the subscribers think, my internet is very slow. 2 million subscribers with Android devices.
Yeah,
that's a big one. Well, hopefully they'll buy we have a module that sits on top of the DNS that can identify this kind of target threats going on and can block the communication. So we're not removing the malware, but we can tell the customer, say, you're infected, go download the...
Does that work? Because we have the impression that users these days, they are not kind of proactive in terms of securing their own stuff. And then telling 2 million people that, hey, you have something, how many people are going to react to that when many people probably have...
So
are there any solutions that the operator can push?
So, yeah.
The user doesn't even know?
You're right. So what we're saying is that no matter you find out the PC is infected or the Android device is infected, you're not going to get the call and say, you know what, you're infected.
Yeah.
So what we suggest is, for example, have a push messaging platform that while the user is browsing, will pop up a message and say, you're infected with the malware, click here, go to your ISP antivirus page, download it, and
yeah, but sometimes you get those messages, and you think those messages are also
You're right.
somebody who's sending you spam or sending you, I don't
So-
know,
so
another virus. Or
there was an operator in Europe. We made this push notification with them, and they did a focus group how to write and how to present there to make sure that the customer knows this comes from them.
Yeah.
And they got the result is that 98% of the subscribers acknowledged that message came from the ISP.
Okay. So
We
more
have,
secure.
Yes.
Okay.
We have ways of putting the telephone number on the message or saying this is, the hacker wouldn't know. And you put of course, you put the look and feel from the ISP, and you put information from that subscriber, so it's a one-to-one message for them to feel, yeah, I'm safe.
Secure.
This is really. But you always say that if you're going to start a new channel of communication with a subscriber, let people know. Well, if you're a big ISP, put some advertising on the newspaper, on the TV, say now we can communicate to you towards this way, so we have a better feedback.
Okay.
And we've seen very good feedback on that, and saying this communication, in-browser communication, it's not a pop-up, so no pop-up blockers and so on, can improve the communication and in the overall the quality of experience of the subscribers, because he will feel more protected.
Taken care of. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
We do see that most of the subscribers, they feel, when you're talking about cell phone, if it's only voice, they feel very confident they're okay. But when we go to the IoT, we go to more devices, they kind of feel cheesy, say, well, maybe I'm not so secure. Oh, I've seen news about cameras that get hacked into, well, smartphones get hacked into as well. And people don't know about it. That's, well, all PC users know they need antivirus, but not all of them have.
If people knew how a phone can be hacked, people would just drop them. Because they can hack your mic, your everything. So anyway.
True.
Let me just switch to Procera and see what Procera can offer the operators to also improve the quality of experience, which from your perspective, there's a lot of work to do.
Yes.
Sure. So Procera, when we look at quality of experience, first we identify that there's a few different ways to look at quality of experience. Traditionally, you have analytics companies that look at things like customer care. What is my experience of my customer when they go into a shop and buy a phone? And these are kind of legacy ways of how is our interaction with subscribers, and is it good? And then you have a number of vendors out there that are really looking at control plane. They're looking at, can the subscriber get on the network, and can they stay on the network? Today, when we think of QoE, we're really thinking about, okay, the subscriber's on the network, is the performance of their connection good? And how do I measure the performance of their connection? And then, what do I do with it? And so Procera, we're very focused on measuring the data plane of the subscribers, and we realizing that quality of experience starts with one subscriber, right? When we're looking at quality of experience, we're talking about the evolution of performance measurement. So we're not looking at counters on routers and switches and what is this metric that's incrementing in this network node. We're looking at what is the data going to this subscriber and what is the performance of that data. And then to make that interesting, to make that useful, we then want to roll that up and create a uniform KPI that we can layer across my network. So now I can compare what is the average user experience in this base station compared to another base station. What is the average user experience in this market compared to another market? And quality of experience, when you start scoring it really just creates more questions. So without driving context, without driving accuracy of the measurements, you're just going to end up with questions that you can't get answers to. So at Procera, we really spent a lot of time providing context to those measurements. And we always start at the flow level and the subscriber level, measure there, be as accurate as possible at that point, and then roll up all the subscribers. So for us, we're focused on, looking at all of the subscribers and all of the data across the entire network, measuring at the subscriber level, and then rolling up. And that's really the evolution of performance measurement KPIs. We're not talking about counters anymore. We're talking about roll-ups of individual subscribers or individual flow behavior. And then what can we do with that? And subscribers or operators are looking at QoE is important, because if the QoE is not good, people leave the network. And if I check into a hotel and I can't stream Netflix, I get bad performance, I'm never going to go back to that hotel again.
Sure.
So QoE is directly relatable to customer sentiment and social media, and it's directly related to brand loyalty. And that's why it's so important that people, if the QoE is not good, people leave, I lose money. It's the number one asset that operators have. But the big question is how do we measure QoE? And there really isn't a uniform and reliable way that's consistent across the industry, consistent across all network nodes for measuring quality of experience. And so Persera, we're trying to provide a uniform and abstracted way of looking at QoE across 100% of the subscribers, 100% of the time, and providing context to those measurements. And then the use cases for it are churn prevention, network planning. I mean, questions like, if I go and add capacity to a network node, did my QoE go up?
Well,
or did it go down?
Now you mentioned capacity, and this is something that I want to bring up, because one would feel tempted to say that the quality of experience is not good in Latin America, where if you see across the region and you go to the different regulators, they have indexes where they rank the quality of the complaints users have for the operators, and the numbers are large. So they're trying to address that. And one would feel tempted to say, well, that's because operators are not investing enough in CapEx, in capacity, in putting more towers, in putting more nodes, in more routers, more whatever. Is that the solution? I mean, is that simple just to...
I mean, operators are always spending money, but they have limited money that they can spend. They can't spend endlessly, so they must prioritize where to spend the money. But typically what we see is operators look at certain measurements like utilization and packet drops and then say, oh, I need to add capacity. When in reality, they're not measuring the QoE where they're adding capacity effectively enough to know that if I added capacity, did my average user experience actually improve, or do I still have a problem? Okay. And so prioritizing CapEx spend is a really important use case for quality of experience.
Yeah, so when we talk about regulation, if you go to, in the case of Brazil, Anatel's regulations say for quality, it's not quality of experience, it's the quality of the network.
True.
So operators have like 5 or 6, I think 6 major KPIs that they have to keep up, call drop rates, so on. This will not tell you the quality of experience, it will tell you a good number for quality of networks, and I believe almost all of the operators have great numbers.
So you would say drop calls is not a measurement for quality of experience? I mean,
it is.
Okay.
But then that's the point is, what is, I personally believe that experience is a matter of expectations.
True.
So when you talk about Latin America has no good quality, that depends. Because for example, if you're talking...
But I'm not saying...
I know,
yeah, okay.
but say most of the subscribers for fixed broadbands in Brazil would have less than 2 megabit per second. Then you go and offer them 10 megabit per second, they will improve the experience, and even if the latency is a little bit still not good enough and they have some international connections issues when during peak hour, Netflix will be much better, and they say, wow, it is good. Yeah. And then you go to fiber to the home and you give them 100 or 200 megabit per second. They will say, great, it's the quality of experience is, you have to compare with something. So maybe, of course, you're right. I travel to US, I have my phone, I try to update some apps, it goes very fast. It's amazing. It is. The quality of experience there is much better than here. But if you don't know that, maybe you're satisfied with what you have here. Okay. So it is very, so the quality of experience depends on what you're waiting for. I was watching the news today, they were talking about train, and it was very crowded, and the guy said, how can I be here? And the guy said, that's okay. How can a guy that's like that on a train going, commuting, say it's okay? Because that, and his answer was, because it's common every day, it's like that. Yeah. So you get used, unfortunately, we get used to anything. So quality of experience, it can improve. But maybe just a little bit more bandwidth or a little bit of a better connection will improve the quality of experience a lot. You don't have to spend the best CapEx. Imagine spending CapEx to make a perfect network all over Brazil. Huge country. Yeah. Go to the Amazon forest north and almost have no transmission there. It's hard to make a very good network compared to here, Rio and São Paulo. So it's, you have to focus where spend the money.
True, but the question was if CapEx was the solution. Like, would you say just putting more, let's imagine they have a lot of money.
Okay.
And then people say, no, it's a matter of CapEx. It's a matter of just putting more towers, more connections. But still you were saying, for example, when you were mentioning about Wi-Fi, before we went on camera, you were saying, yeah, but you know, here there are hundreds of Wi-Fi connections, but now they are messing each other up. So at some point, if you put a lot of capex, even if it might not be the right answer.
I'd say capex is the solution, but investing a lot of money and throwing away the money is not the solution. Okay. So I don't think that investing a lot of capex here could improve quality of experience, but probably don't have the payback to invest all that capex, because after all, this is limited amount of people that could pay what we're talking about.
You want to add something?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that definitely spending money and adding capacity is important, but you have to do it intelligently. And QoE is not just high throughput. Some applications benefit from high throughput. Some applications really don't need a lot of throughput. So latency, packet loss, jitter, other quality measurements really come into play. And one thing we've seen is that there's a race to get gigabit speeds to the home. And the fact of the matter is the higher the link speed, the faster and larger the burst size on the network, which can actually increase congestion. If you have endpoints bursting at very high speeds, you increase collision rates, which increases packet loss. Some applications like web browsing, video communications, they really don't tolerate packet loss, whereas Netflix, it can handle packet loss, it can handle latency. So we have to look at the context of what applications people are using, what's a good QoE for that venue. I mean, QoE in a hotel is different than a gift card store, right? I mean, people have different expectations. And so we have to look at all of that and then invest CapEx wisely and understand that there's everything from the internet circuit to the caches to the DNS servers to the base stations and the devices themselves play a role in QoE. And so we have to look at an end-to-end view and understand what's driving that bad QoE score. Because it's not always just capacity. Okay,
now you mentioned KPIs for the regulators or what the operators are measuring. Is that something that's kind of redundant in the industry, that's saying that the KPIs that we are measuring perhaps are not the right ones, or we need to improve the way we handle those KPIs, because it seems they are not addressing, as you were saying, or both of you were saying, the quality of experience of the user, because we're measuring stuff that might not be the right stuff. Like an engineer would measure what's the throughput, the average throughput.
I think it's maybe not necessarily the KPIs that they're measuring, but how they're measuring. Because a lot of the regulatory industries are putting out network probe devices that are simply testing the bandwidth at one location. Okay. But they don't take into account that maybe the neighbor next door has a totally different experience for other reasons. And so the way we measure these KPIs is as important as to what we're measuring. And we can't look at things like 5-minute samples or one user's experience. We really have to sample all of the connections, all of the time, and do it very, very frequently to get accurate measurements. Because
and can that be done?
Absolutely.
Costly effective? Because you have 40 million subscribers and you have to check one by one all the time.
40 million.
Or what?
Increase that.
Or what?
Well, we have 280 million mobile subscribers in Brazil now.
Yeah, so each operator, huge. How do you measure? I mean, it sounds. I mean, I'm not saying it cannot be done, but
it's a hard job to be done.
Expensive.
It is.
That's the secret sauce, right? Is how do you measure all the subscribers all the time? And our QoE experience was, for years we've looked at QoE and we've been challenged by operators to say, hey, at this venue, is that subscriber having a good experience? And we've looked at things like 15-minute stats, 5-minute stats. We've gone to 1-minute stats, and what you see is this long line that really doesn't tell you what's happening with the subscriber. And what we've realized is that the shorter the sampling interval, the more interesting the measurements. Okay. And so we've really gotten to the point of where sub-second measurements, sampling per subscriber, are absolutely fundamental to how we look at the data pipe going to a subscriber. And only then do we understand, is the traffic bursting to 70 megabits, whereas my 5-minute sample said the user averaged 3 megabits, right? And that stuff all really comes into play and tells a very different story.
All right.
But still, regulation have a big important thing, because here in Brazil, for the Net Neutrality Act, Marco Civil, that makes a big issue, because when we're looking at the data plane, and if you go for DPI, they're going to say, you cannot do that, because you cannot mess with the data plane of the subscriber. If you go to the control plane, well, that's metadata. They say, okay, you can use it, but once you go inside, that it's very different than the United States, that they are much more open to lots of things. We here tend to look much more to the European side, so it is really hard.
So regulation is asking to improve the quality, but also is putting some barriers for that control.
Yeah, and we have to work with it, and so sometimes we have to work with the tools that we have and I'd say more centralized solution is not the ideal one, but it's for sure more cost effective than going for Brazil. It's huge. They had data that said Brazil has the same number of access sites, mobile sites as England, and compare the size of it. So it's going to be a lousy connection. Yeah, well,
obviously. Yeah.
Imagine if we had the same density, how much more network site website, mobile sites we need.
Yeah.
And that's crazy to keep up with everything, and especially if we have to have a better probing on everything. That's really tough. That's really tough. So it's very hard to do something in the sense, at least in Brazil, that it's such a
large country. Yeah.
Large country to do it and still have to obey all the regulations and say, okay, well, you have to do that, but you cannot do that. So balancing is very complex.
Right.
And still the economic part, you say, well, you had some money, now you don't have it anymore. So it's quite complex.
Well, we're going to leave it here because we are running out of time. I really appreciate you being here for the discussion, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.